Well, good evening, everybody. It is, let's see, day 23 for the Triple S Beta Challenge, which is vlogging every day in August. And hey, welcome in, Caleb. It is day 23, and it is 10 minutes to midnight. And today's just been a long day. Sundays are a long day for me anyway. But I said, well, you know what? I'm still going to keep on track that every day, vlogging every day in August, and still it is today. So today I am vlogging about my favorite motivational quote. And it's one I learned probably about 15 years ago, maybe longer than that, maybe closer to 20. And it's simply put this way. It's if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll always have what you've always had. And I really like that quote. And if you've ever heard that quote, by the way, just go ahead and give me a few hearts there or something if you've ever heard that quote before. If you continue to do what you've always done, you'll always have what you've always had. And if you've heard that quote before, and you give me a few hearts or whatever. Also, I'd like to know, before I get into my explanation of why I like that quote, if you have a favorite motivational quote, you feel free to leave it for me there. Or if you don't have one, you can use that for your own benefit. But I think why I like that quote is the fact that it constantly forces me to change things in my own life. Like if I'm not happy with, hey, thanks for the heart. If I'm not happy with something in my life, if I remember that I'll continue to do what I've always done, then I'm always going to have what I've got. So I have to change, and I think change happens in the little areas of life, right? It's in how we the little time things that we have. That if we're putting too much time into television, or people that want to, and this is me included. I mean, maybe I'm not real sharp on losing weight, but if I wanted to lose weight, I couldn't look at my life and go, you know what? I'm really angry that I'm not losing weight. But then again, if I continue to do what I've always done, well, then I'm always going to have the same kind of weight issue, or I'm always going to have that kind of thing. I think it's the same thing for work. I think it's the same thing for whatever you're working on in life. If you look at, I think it's always, they say the devil's in the details, and I believe that's a that's a good motivational quote too. But I believe also that if we look at our daily lives, that the habits we're building in our daily lives are the clue to what it is we need to change. And that's maybe if we're getting up at the same time every day, if we're not getting up early, if we're not, hustling that day, if we're not looking at the little details of our life and saying, you know what, there's something I can tweak here. Maybe it's something we say all the time. Maybe we have these failure complexes, right? Where there's things that I used to say about my own life that I don't say anymore, and I'm not going to repeat them here. But the fact is, that the things that we've heard all our lives from other people, whether it's, in our minds, in our minds, we say, well, we're going to be failures, or we're going to be, I'm always going to be a failure, or I'm never going to find the right one, or I'm never, and partly of doing the same, if we continue to do what we've always done, we'll always have what we've always had, but partly we have to watch what we say. I think there's a lot of power. There's a proverb that says that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and I believe that, that the things we speak and say over our own lives about ourselves, they become somewhat self-fulfilling prophecies in a way, is that we declare these things over our lives, and so we basically build our own coffins, if you will, out of our words, and we bury ourselves. We say, well, I'm always going to be this way. I'm never going to change. Things are never going to go right for me. And I guess I am just an optimism at heart, I think, in respects to how I think and view my own life, that I do believe things are going to get better. And I think a lot of it, comes from changing the little things about my own life, whether it's my work habits, whether it's what time I'm getting up, whether it's the TV shows I'm watching, or the fact that I'm not watching any shows, or that I'm not going to the movies. Say I'm never going to get ahead in life, or, I'm never going to get financially ahead. Well, the question we have to ask ourselves, if that's true, is that we have to look at how we spend our money. What do we spend our money on all the time that is literally, binding us up and not allowing us the room that we want to have? I always say this now. There's a phrase there that says, you need to get up earlier, dude. I understand. I do need to get up earlier. I get up early every day, man. My son goes to school at 5:30, and usually I'm hitting the computer and blogging and doing whatever. But I also don't get on Periscope at 5:30 in the morning because I don't think anybody's up or awake or wants to see this at 5:30 in the morning. I assure you. I'm sure all the people watching here are far more beautiful than I, and you just wake up perfect in the morning. So, right? Give me a thumbs up if that's true, right? But anyway, for me, it's all about the details of life. Sometimes it's the books I'm reading, right? Sometimes if it's the same book we're reading or the same kinds of books we're reading, maybe we're not getting a breakthrough there. Maybe we're not getting a breakthrough because the types of information and input. Maybe it's our viewing habits on YouTube. Maybe it's our internet habits. Whatever that may be, we have to, I think, at least for me, it's true. Sup, Bat Boy? Thanks. Appreciate that. Were you always this positive? You know, I wasn't. And for a long time, I think that's why this quote means a lot to me, is because I wasn't positive. I had a lot of people in my life that were very negative on me in my life. And then I began to develop these grooves like a record. You know, these things get into your brain and get into your thinking about that, you know, that I'm not going to become anything in life. And I've just refused that. I've just refused to believe any of that says. Are you Walter White? I am not Walter White. Do you see any suits in here? Any yellow suits in here? Absolutely not. I'm answering these questions there. I know I see these little questions there. But for me, I've not always been this positive. Like I said, I've had these grooves in my head. They could be upstairs, but they're not. And so for me, what was the turning point? Good question. The turning point for me is, and I'll tell you a little backstory, is for me, I grew up in a very rough family in New York. Both of my parents were alcoholics. Both have since passed on. Let's ask you questions. Well, you can. You can ask me a question. I don't know if I'm going to answer all of them, but I'm going to answer this one question I know for sure here. I grew up in a family of alcoholics. I was on a road myself where alcohol was definitely a way for me to deal with my issues and deal with things that I was dealing with. And so for me, the turning point came probably when I understood myself in light of my own faith now. The fact that I believe God made me for a purpose. I believe God made me for a reason. I believe I'm on the planet for a purpose, and then I'm discovering that purpose. You know, I think when we develop that, if we continue to do what we've always done, we'll always have what we always have. If we always think that, you know, that we're just accidental, if we think that we're just mindless beings upon the planet with no purpose, then I think we'll tend to gear ourselves that way. I think we tend to, you know, lean into that. And so for me, as a person of faith, I lean into what I think the purposes of God are. Yes, they are guns behind me right there. And so for me, the turning point came when I realized who I was as a believer, as a follower of Jesus, and what God had done for me. And I just said, I am not a vegan. Good question, right? Yeah, I do. I go to church. I do go to church. I'm a youth pastor, actually. I work as a pastor. I deal with a lot of kids and a lot of issues and things like that. And so partly, you know, I try to help kids turn around their habits. If I can help a kid with his habits, if I can, with their daily routine and their daily things that they think about themselves, through faith, and give them a different spotlight on that, about what, number one, what I think about them, but number, you know, what God thinks about them. And the fact that they have purpose and that they have choices and that they can live the life that God's asked them to live, and God's, you know, put them on the planet to live for themselves. So that's my quote for the day. That's kind of my turning point, was when I understood who I was, that I believed I had purpose, when I believed that I had a point in this life to help people and to work with people. Then that was the turning point for me. And so for me, the fact is that if I continue to do what I've always done, I'll always have what I always had. But let me tell you what, I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. And I'm not going to be the same person next year or 6 months from now, because I'm going to change things that I'm dealing with right now. Maybe you're dealing with a few things in your life. The fact is this, that you can change that. But you got to be willing to say, if I got to change my daily habits, I got to change what I believe about myself. I got to change what I believe about the universe. I got to change what I believe about God. I have to change some things. If we don't change, we will continue to stay in the rut of life. And we have to do that. And so I don't know what little choices maybe that you need to make. I know that I have to make my choices. My choices are coming up with less and less TV. more and more reading time, a little more quiet time in my life, a lot more relational time. I'm always with a, oh, okay. Well, I understand that. I can understand that. That's the deal. Is if we can deal with those little habits, and I like there's one other quote. It's not a really motivational quote, but it's what's his name that does the money. He says, live like no one else, so one day you'll live like no one else. That's another pretty good quote, and that's in regards to, I think that was Dave. Oh snap, I can't remember his name now. Dave. He's the big money guru. But that's another thing, we choose to live right now how we want. And I gear my life right now for where I want to be about 10 years from now. And 10 years from now, I want to be do I like Matt Pitt? Not a never met the guy, so I don't know. I've never been to any of his stuff or anything like that, so I don't know. I know who he is. But Anyway, I hope that that little motivational thing there for you. I hope you have some motivational quotes. By the way, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, if you have a favorite motivational quote, please go ahead and leave it down in the comments below. And if you're not a subscriber, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button right here, and that will get videos like this in your inbox. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. We only got about maybe 6 more days left of this, I think, or 7 more days of the Triple S Beta Challenge, which is vlogging every day in August. And I have met my commitment today. Because even though it's right before midnight here, it's still today. So I've kept my commitment today, and I'll keep my commitment tomorrow. And hopefully you guys are finding out a little bit about me. I'd love to know more about you in the Periscope world there. So be sure to keep following me, and I will follow you hopefully and learn a little bit more about you. So anyway, guys, thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little while it's still today. I hope you guys have a great tomorrow. Say a prayer for me as I take my CDL driving lesson tomorrow, test tomorrow. Hopefully I'll pass that, so we'll go from there. All right, guys, you guys have a great evening, and I will see you guys next time tomorrow on the Triple S Veda Challenge. Peace, brother. We'll see you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.